that the whole premise really of the Ramchal is that you go from either the klal or the prat, you go from the generalizations to the more the specifications, or you go actually from the branches, from the extensions to the root, to the core. And the Ramchal, one of the brilliant things about the Ramchal, he was like Maimonides. Everybody compared him to Moses, to Rabbi Akiva, to Noah. But on a very simple level, he was like it was like Maimonides in that he was very systematic. But and like Maimonides, he had different types of work. Like the Maimonides had the code, the Yad HaChazaka, and the Moreh Nevuchim. Two very different types, although you could tell there's an influence on one to the other. And the Rabbi quoted extensively from the Rambam on Shmona Prakim about the Yichud, about God's unity. So the Ramchal also has different svarim. He has these different books that, whether it's Mesilas Yesharim, Derech Hashem, many svarim. But one of the things he's doing is he's working us up to be able to be the vessel to understand really the secrets of the Torah. In fact, many years ago I asked Rabbi Brandwein, Rabbi Brandwein, what's the best way to study Kabbalah? You know what he said? He said, start with Klach Pischei Chachma. He said, with the Klach Pischei Chachma. This is the Sefer, the 138 openings of wisdom, of heavenly wisdom. It's a very comprehensive. In fact, even Rabbi Avraham Greenbaum, who actually wrote the translation of Klach Pischei Chachma, what he told me is the following. He says, first of all, it's known that you do Derech Hashem, Das Tmunos, it's leading up to Klach Pischei Chachma. It's like stepping stones. He said when he learned Klach Pischei Chachma, that was when he began, that was like the foundation stone for him to be able to really open up the Zohar, to be able to read all these other texts that before you have. The problem with Kabbalah is you have to read the whole system before you understand any of it. That's the challenge. So you keep hearing again this 10 Spheros, this 4 Olamos, there's different levels of the Shabbos, but you never really get beyond that, because to get beyond that you have to crack the code. And that's what he's really doing in Klach Pischei Chachma. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do a good job of explaining Klach Pischei Chachma after we already had such luminaries tonight as Rabbi Mendel Kessin is really a world-renowned scholar in the field of Torah in general, Ramchal in particular, and his son who makes Torah and entertainment come together. And I'm not going to. It's already Klach Pischei Chachma is already heavy, even if we had all night to talk about it. And since we don't, I'll just pick a few things to talk about. First of all, last week we were talking about when I came in, what you were talking about. We're talking about God's unity. And you were talking about, Rabbi Kassim was talking about how you cannot comprehend what God really is. But on the other hand, in Das Tchunos he says, but there is something that you can understand about God, because you could say what he isn't. That he isn't something like other things. That he doesn't have a unity made up of parts. And what we can say about the highest level of God is what we say he isn't. Because what he is, we can't even say. And then the Ramchal in Das Tchunos goes on to say that even though we know that God created the world as an act of kindness to do good to us, the recipients of the good, through giving us ourselves, giving us the experience that we have of self, of ego, of separateness, of potential strife, conflict, envy, greed, all of the things that come with being human. or even being an animal, whichever one you prefer, or in the natural world. All of those things are given to us to be able to experience the idea of choice. There was a big professor who told me he was having a hard time with God because of evolution. He believes in evolution. And he talked to a rabbi. I won't say the name of the rabbi because maybe the rabbi won't like if I quote him, because he didn't tell it to me beferish. He talked to the rabbi and he told him his question. You know what the rabbi answered him? Choice. Bechira chafshus. He said, yes, that I believe in. He said, if so, then everything is back again. In other words, this person, even though he had questions about God, when he realized that we really have bechira, that it's this world out there with, we really make decisions and choose what we want to do, good or bad, that to him was enough of an answer of why he has to be a religious Jew. He's a Shomer Shabbos Jew. So, the bechira, in a simple level, the Romchal says it's so, in order that we should have, he says in Derech Hashem, in order that we should feel that what we earn is, we deserved it, we made it, it's not just a gift. It doesn't feel as powerful to a person when they receive an inheritance or a handout as when you actually feel that you earned it. And this is something that other people, like even the Meir Shiloach, who's very controversial in saying that this bechira is in some degree possibly an illusion, but an illusion it is, even to the Meir Shiloach, because you need it. You need to feel you have bechira. Whether you actually have bechira or not is another question. And the Ramchal, based on the Arizal, deals with it when he talks about igulim v'yosher, which are the ideas of whether we are living in a natural world where things are pretty much set by nature, which is ultimately set by the Creator in a set way. That's called igulim, the circular version of the program, or yosher, linear, which can be aligned in a way where there are choices that can be made. So the creation, these are all very, very similar to some of the concepts that Carl Jung talks about in terms of understanding where the collective unconscious of the person is emanating out of. So the Ramchal in Klach B'Tzar Chachma, based on Ari, explaining the source of Kabbalah, is explaining it to some people more literally, like the Vilna Gaon, one of his greatest followers, even though they never met, and to other people more metaphorically, figuratively, like the way the Baal Shem Tov learns, of how it is that we get from this unity to this experience of bechira, of choice, of self. And what's the purpose of it? Lahetiv, to do good, so that we can experience good. There's still questions on that. Ultimately, there's no simplistic answer or even complicated answer that makes life easy. You see, part of the beauty of Kabbalah is that it's not simple. It's more poetry than philosophy, but it is also a philosophy. And the philosophers of Kabbalah were also Kabbalists, whether it was Moshe Cordovero or people like the Ramchal who were able to establish it as a philosophy, a system. Its beauty lies in its mystery. And that's why there's a distinction and difference between philosophy, even Torah philosophy, and Kabbalah. So even though, and I think that he takes great pains in Das Tvunos and in Klach B'Tzar Chachma, that even though he has an answer, it pains him to have an answer. Even though he says Lahetiv, he says this concept of, God created the world to do good. Why is it that when you hear somebody say, what's your purpose?